Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Late Night Learning. I am your host, Dr. Anthony Palomba. Now today we will be going through the journal article assignment. And so I'm going to be explaining a little bit of what I'm looking for in this assignment. Now I know generally speaking, we tend to feel grossed out, mortified, horrified, and disgusted when we think of an academic journal at all. I know that we typically think academic studies are boring. Trust me, I get it. But there are a lot of articles out there that are really, really interesting, really, really fun, and I think will help expand your own knowledge surrounding a particular medium. And so today I'm going to break down the assignment that you have that's due, and I recommend emailing me if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. It's likely that I will provide you with examples of articles, what they should look like. Generally speaking, you should be able to find academic journal articles at the St. John's University Library website. Make sure that you find articles that are peer-reviewed. When you search for an article, one thing you should consider doing is searching for a medium and a theory. A medium and a theory. And so you might look up television and social identity theory in the search bar. That's going to ensure that you come up with articles that discuss television consumption as well as social identity theory. And so that is number one. In trying to search for a particular article, it's really, really important that you link your medium up with your theory. Okay. When you search for that, you'll see on the left-handed side of the website for St. John's University, peer-reviewed, right? You'll see boxes and options there. You want to be sure that you click on peer-reviewed. Peer-reviewed means that whatever you have found has been published by a journal that uses other scientists to review, or other scholars or researchers to review. Right? Some of my work that can be found there is located or are located in peer-reviewed journals. And so my work has been reviewed by other researchers in my field and were deemed publishable. And so those are some steps to begin this process along. I don't really recommend Google Scholar. It's good. I do like it, but it does capture kind of everything, including some weird journals. There are weird journals out there. There are predatory journals out there that allow academics to pay money to get published. You want to avoid that nonsense and instead really focus on peer-reviewed articles only. Again, if you need help with this, please let me know. But what you're looking to do here, once you've found the article that you want, is getting a sense of how good the article is. In other words, you're actually performing a critique of a journal article. Now, I recognize that many of you have never read an academic journal article before. I also recognize this is your first time. I recognize all of those things. So this assignment is really meant to get your feet wet in research, to really see what professional researchers do, how academic research is organized, and how it can be fruitful not only for academics, but also for industry professionals as well. Let's take a look at the assignment itself. And so for the journal article here, what I'm looking for is that you should find an academic journal article that involves media. So it could involve television, radio, film, social media, video games, news, journalism, anything to do with media, as long as it involves media. That's important there. The second thing you should look for is data collection. You need to ensure that the article collected data, original data. What does that mean? It means, did the scholars perform or execute a survey or a focus group or an experiment or a content analysis or a thematic analysis? What did the researchers do here? you want to make sure that your article does include original data collection. If you are confused about whether or not your article has original data collection, email me. Please email me. You can send me the article. Don't ask me for permission to send me the article. Simply send me the article and say, listen, Dr. Palomba, I'm a little confused. It's not a big deal. I am more than happy to help you out. Okay. So your goal is to write a 4 to 6 page study review, double-spaced, 12-point font with default margins. I know that seems like a lot, but then again, you have 10 questions here. And so you will quickly hit 4, 5, and 6 pages. So I would not worry about that. So you should write this in an essay format with an introduction introducing the study and why you selected it. To answer each question, each paragraph should be 4 to 6 sentences. Make sure your topic sentences reflect which questions you are answering. I say this because I need to know, as the grader and who will be evaluating your work, which question you're tackling here. And so, simply put, if you can say, for the first paragraph that you write after you've written your introduction, what does the abstract discuss? You can say, oh, the abstract discusses this. For the second paragraph you write, what is discussed in the introduction? What's the main concept of the study? What is, the introduction discusses A, B, and C. The main concept is A, B, and C, right? You just want to be clear here with each paragraph so I can follow it, you can follow it, and there's no confusion here. Terrific. You want to make sure that your topic sentences are strong. Again, it has to be clear to me which question you are answering. So let's go through each question briefly here. I alluded to this earlier. I will attach an academic article, one of my own, as kind of a demo. It's kind of to illustrate what all of these concepts are. And so what's important to note here first is, what does the abstract discuss? The abstract is the paragraph on the cover page of the study, or it is the paragraph above the introduction. The abstract is a summary paragraph. If you are looking for this paragraph, it is the paragraph that summarizes the entire study. Look at the abstracts for your own personal use, because the abstract is going to let you know if you like the study, if you're going to benefit from the study. That's the purpose of abstracts, because as academics and even as industry professionals, we don't have time to read all of these studies and then figure out if they're going to be beneficial for us. It's important to read abstracts first to get a sense of whether or not the study is going to be useful. For you, ladies and gentlemen, you want to pick a study that is going to be fun for you. This should be fun. So read the abstract carefully. If you don't like the study, move on. All you have to do is find one anyway. Okay. So as long as you have your study, you want to be able to talk about what the abstract discusses. Again, you're going to summarize what the summary of the study is. For the second question, what is discussed in the introduction? What is the main concept of the study? What are the scholars interested in investigating? What do they want to know? Is there a gap in academic research? Has nobody ever studied the impact of social media on mental health? By the way, there are dozens and dozens of studies on this, but that's kind of what you want to be thinking about with this second question here. For the third question, what theory or theories are discussed in the literature review? Is there a logical application of theory in the lit review? Does it make sense to use this theory? Why? Okay, so for the third question here, what you want to be mindful of is where the theory is. In the literature review, theory is often spoken about first. And so if you did what you were supposed to do and you searched for articles with television and social identity, or maybe you searched for video games and self-determination theory, that theory should pop up somewhere in the lit review. All theory begins in the beginning of the literature review. It is very easy to find here. What you want to think about is this theory a logical application to explain why something is occurring in the study? Does social identity theory help explain why African Americans watch Love and Hip Hop, or why Asian Americans watch Off the Boat, right? In both scenarios, the answer is likely yes. It's a kind of a logical application of that theory there. And so that's what you want to think about for number 3. Does it make sense to apply this theory? Is it logical, etc., etc.? Okay. For question 4, what variables are brought up in the literature review? Do the variables make sense after theory is discussed in the literature review? Everything else after the theory constitutes discussions surrounding variables. You will likely see titles for brand loyalty or perceived emotional intelligence or ad recall or other terms and variations of gender, age, income. It could, variables could be basically anything, any kind of measurement that is germane and relevant to the study. Variables will be brought up in the literature review. What I am asking you is if the variables make sense. Simply put, does it make sense to have brand loyalty as a variable in the study? Does it make sense to have brand satisfaction in the study as a variable? Does any of this make sense? For question 5, we're almost there, ladies and gentlemen. What was the method that was used in this journal article? Is it a strong method? Why? And so again, right by data collection should be method. After the lit review, usually the method and data collection are discussed. And so the method includes maybe a survey, maybe an experiment, maybe a focus group, maybe in-depth interviews, maybe a content analysis, maybe a thematic analysis, maybe an ethnography, maybe a webnography, maybe social media data collection. Items like that will be discussed in the method section. And I'm just asking you if you think it's a strong method. Does it make sense? Does it make sense that researchers would carry out focus groups to better understand how children interpret religious meaning that is exhibited in video games, let's say? Okay. For question 6, what were the hypotheses and research questions in the study? This is pretty easy to find. Hypotheses are usually designated as H1 or H2 or H3. Research questions are often shortened to RQ. You will absolutely be able to find hypotheses and research questions in your study. If you have issues, let me know. Some studies are a little strange in that regard, but usually researchers lay out hypotheses and research questions. Okay. For 7, as best as you can understand, what were the results of the study? Do they make sense? This is key here. Remember, if you see the little stars, the statistical significance, the P is less than 0.01, or P is less than 0.05, or P is less than 0.001, you want to interpret those findings as statistically significant and that they're important to the study and germane to the study. Again, I recognize you have not done this before. I am trying to make you literate, not an expert, but literate in being able to interpret an academic article, just so you can get the gist of what's going on. Okay, what is mentioned in the discussion section? After the results, and usually the results may include tables and statistics or quotes or themes, right? If we're working with qualitative research or something that may include focus groups or in-depth interviews, the discussion section usually talks about a few things. For one, it talks about how theory was advanced. Oh, we furthered our understanding of social identity theory because we applied it to why African Americans watch Blackish or why Asian Americans watch Off the Boat. Fine. And these are just examples, mind you, ladies and gentlemen. So from there, then, you want to talk about what the researchers have talked about. I mean, what are the implications of the study, right? Why did you do this particular study? Why did you bother with this study? Does it make sense? Have we furthered our understanding about, maybe it's a race or ethnicity, or maybe it's, teenage women, or it's males, older males or younger males, or maybe it's just our understanding about hardcore video game players. And so in the discussion section, you just want to be mindful of that as you're moving along here. For question 9, what are the limitations of this study? Now, for your studies, you may have a limitations section. You may have a limitations and future studies section. You may not have any limitations. Okay. If there are no limitations in your study, come up with a few. Think about how this study could have been better. Think about what limited this study. What should the researchers have done, ladies and gentlemen? I recognize that you're not researchers to the extent that these scholars are, but that doesn't mean that you don't have a critical eye and you can't think for yourself and come up with something. I'm confident that you can figure out one thing a study could have improved upon, for sure. Let's keep going. For question 10, what studies may be pursued from this study? Put differently, based on what you read in this study, including findings, what future studies would you like to see done? Okay, so question 10 certainly hits on future studies. Some of your articles that you may find, or for some of you, you may find a study that has a future study section in it. Brilliant. You can use that to help you answer this question. If you don't have a future study section, use your own brain. We have now found that social identity theory can be applied to help explain why so many African Americans watch Blackish, or so many Caucasians watch Modern Family, or so many Asian Americans watch Off the Boat. Okay, well, if we know that, what's the next thing that you're interested in? Are you interested to know which characters Caucasian audience members link up with the most in Modern Family? Because it's a fairly diversified cast. They do have different cast members of different, genders and ethnicities and races and sexual identity. You may want to think about what the next step is here. What's the next thing that you want to know based on the results here? And then 11, finally, what would you suggest to improve this study? Is there something that you can think of that you'd like to do? What else can be done here to improve this study? Okay. If we look at the rubric here, this is the rubric I'll be grading you on. I like to be transparent with my students as best as I can. Critical analysis, I want you to be thinking during your journal critique. So think about what the scholars are doing. Think about what the scholars are applying as theory. Think about the variables that are being measured. Demonstrate that you've really thought about what's going on in this article. Grammar and spelling, please hit F7. Please hit spell check. I always have students that mess this up because they do not spell check. Additionally, for the love of God, Moses, the universe, whomever you pray to, please proofread your work. Read it out loud. Or, if you're lazy like me, have your computer read out loud your work. I swear to you, to this day, I still have my computer read all of my studies out loud before I submit them to a journal for publication consideration. I do this because it is critical to listen for errors, and sometimes we become so blinded to our work that our eyes get lazy and we miss things. I am absolutely guilty of this. This is why I will not submit anything to anyone without having my computer read it out loud to me, and have me paying attention, by the way. That doesn't mean that I'm on Snapchat while the computer's reading it out loud. I'm following along and I'm listening. I might stare at the floor, I might stare at the ceiling, but I am trying to listen for anything that doesn't make sense. The abstract and introduction discussion, theory and variables, research questions, hypotheses, results, limitations and future studies, discussion, follow-up studies, and proof studies. All of this is pretty obvious. The goal here is that you're all trying to articulate a really solid journal critique. Let's go to the next page. So here you can see the, demo. And so I took one of my older publications, And I elected to do a journal critique of something that I had done in the past. My name, the date, review journal article. Please place your citation in APA format. I will provide a link to KnightCite, K-N-I-G-H-T, site, CITE.com, knightsite.com. That will allow you to place something in APA format. If you click on KnightCite, at the left-hand side of the website, you'll see up top that you have to click on APA. You want to make sure that it's APA, and then click on Journal Article. From there, you can put in the title, the way that it should be cited, and you can write it along. Additionally, you can simply copy what I've done here. This is a Word document that is for you. You can simply copy where the journal is italicized, the title itself. You can put it in yourself. You can see where the volume and issue are. The volume is the italicized 6. After the title, the issue is 2, and the page numbers are there as well. And the author's name, last name first, the first letter of the first name is provided with a period after it. So you can see here, you can just simply follow the format. As you are going through this, you can see here in the first introduction, I introduce this article and I talk about why I am examining this article for my own journal article critique. Let's move along here. Again, you can see each paragraph here really does work to break down what's going on here. The thing to note here is that the topic sentences are strong and clear. You know where and what I am talking about at each step of the way here. Let's keep going. You can talk about the variables here as well. Let's keep going. You can talk about the method. You can talk about the hypotheses and research questions afterwards. As you can see, again, you're following the template here. I want to be sure that you're following the template. Let's move along here. Discussion section has been discussed here. Let's move along here. Several limitations you can see in the first paragraph. Then there are 2 future studies I would be eager to see in the next paragraph. The bottom paragraph, its topic sentence. There are several things that could have been done to improve this study. So again, you're just working to provide a critique. If you follow along with my demo, I don't think that you're going to have any issues. Let's move along. And thus is the end of the assignment itself. And so that's really the breakdown that I did want to provide you today. I recommend a few things. For one, I recommend first ensuring that you find a proper article. Remember, you want to be sure that you go through St. John's University Library. You want to be sure that you find a medium and a theory and search for it. And then on the left-hand side of St. John's University Library, after you've clicked search, you want to make sure that you click on peer reviewed. Make sure that you look for peer reviewed. You'll click on that tab. It'll probably reshuffle the articles, but you'll be sure to find something solid. Second, you want to make sure that your article has an original data collection, survey, focus group, experiment, etc., etc. Once you have everything, read the article. I recommend reading it a second time, just so you get a better grasp on it. From there, honestly, what I would do, I would have my demo open and I would have a blank Microsoft Word page for yourself. Follow along with my demo, or do the best that you can and then compare it against my demo. If you do this, I think the experience will be pleasurable. I think you'll grab something from it, and I think academic articles will become less scary. That's the goal of this assignment. That's all the time we have on Late Night Learning. As always, keep laughing and keep learning.